Hello and welcome, this is Melsgunner, and this video is meant to be a fun discussion of mechs that I would like to see added to the current list of what is slated to be included in the upcoming release of the BattleTech video game. I'm pretty well satisfied with the list of mechs that will be in the game, but as a fan of the BattleTech universe, and I'm sure other fans of the game, have mechs that I would like to see added to the game. Now, I understand that the devs' time and resources are limited, and there has to be a practical limit to how many mechs are included in the game. But this is meant as more of a fun discussion, and maybe if not on launch, some of these mechs could be added in as later DLC mech packs, or as an update further down the road. As far as this video is concerned, I pared this down to 5 mechs, but depending on the popularity of this video, I can easily see making more lists in the future. I placed the mechs on this list in order of lightest to heaviest, and with each mech I'm going to give a brief description of its capabilities backed by stats from the tabletop game for comparison's sake, as well as the reason why I want the mech to be added to the game. I will only be discussing the standard loadout of each mech rather than any variants for simplicity's sake. Starting things off, I'm already breaking the rules by including 2 mechs as one entry, but there's a good reason for this, as the Wasp and Stinger are very similar in capabilities, with the only real difference being their armament. Because I understand resources are limited for the dev team, I'm going to choose one of these 2 to focus on, as the Stinger has identical armament as the Locust that is already in the game. I have chosen the Wasp to be the representative for this spot on the list, but I do consider this an and/or situation where I would prefer both, but if only one could be chosen, then either one would do. Like the Locust, the Wasp is a 20-ton mech, and although with a walking speed of 6 and a running speed of 9, it is not as fast as the Locust on the ground, the main key element to the Wasp design is its 6 jumping movement. It does lose out a bit in armor when compared to the Locust, as the Wasp has 3 tons of armor to the Locust's 4. As far as armament goes, the Wasp carries a medium laser and an SRM-2. This gives it a little bit of a longer range punch when compared to the Locust and Stinger, which are armed with a medium laser and 2 machine guns. Coming with the standard 10 heat sinks, the mech only builds up heat after max jumping and firing all its weapons, and even then, the heat is manageable. What this mech brings to the game is an alternative light scout to the already in-game Locust. The jump jets give this mech an edge in rougher terrain versus the higher open ground mobility of the Locust. I think its addition will give the player more options when it comes to setting up their lance for scouting tasks or when constructing a light lance. The 30-ton Valkyrie, although slower than our previous entry with a walking speed of 5 and running of 8, maintains good mobility with a jumping movement of 5. With 6 tons of armor, the mech is fairly well protected for its size. Its armament is a LRM-10 and a single medium laser, which gives a good long-range punch. With 11 heat sinks, the Valkyrie has a similar heat profile as the Wasp, only after jumping max distance and firing all weapons will heat build up, and again at very manageable levels. The Valkyrie serves well on the support role, something I feel is much needed in the current slated mech lineup, especially at the lighter end of the scale. The Valkyrie again gives the player more options, not only as a lower value support mech to round out a lance, but also to add depth to a light lance build. The 45-ton Phoenix Hawk is one of the mechs that I most want added into the game. With a walking speed of 6, running of 9, and the addition of jump jets that can move the mech 6 spaces, the Phoenix Hawk is a rather mobile medium mech that can keep pace nicely with lighter mechs like the previously mentioned Wasp or the already in-game Commando. 8 tons of armor is respectable at this weight, and the firepower of a large laser, 2 mediums, and 2 machine guns are also pretty good. Having only 10 heat sinks, the Phoenix Hawk will struggle with heat buildup, especially if jumping and firing the large laser. Firing all weapons after a max jump is not highly recommended. The Phoenix Hawk brings a lot to the table. Its high mobility allows it to be used as a heavy scout, a scout hunter, or a good hit-and-run attacker. Decent protection and firepower mixed in with a strong mobility make this a well-rounded mech that can fill a lot of lance needs, with its main downside being the heat buildup that it can generate. The 50-ton Crab is a solid frontliner with decent mobility at its weight with a 5 walking speed and 8 running, but the Crab is the first mech on this list not to have jump jets. 9 tons of armor is about average for a mech of its weight and role. With a loadout of 2 large lasers, a small and medium laser, the Crab is armed entirely with energy weapons, meaning that it is free of ammunition dependency or the threat of ammo explosions. The firepower itself is respectable, and with 16 heatsinks, heat can be a problem of firing all weapons, but with staggering of fire, can be kept in check fairly easily. The Crab is another mech that I feel strongly about when it comes to adding to the game. Firstly, because of its unique and I think rather cool appearance. Secondly, as a fan of medium mechs, I think the Crab adds a solid frontline option at its weight class. Also, I think it would be odd to have the King Crab, which is going to be in the game, without the Crab being in the game as well. What is the King Crab going to be king of without its subjects? Last but not least, especially not in weight, we have the 65-ton Crusader. A walking speed of 4 and running of 6 is fairly average for its weight, with no jumping movement. 12 tons of armor is pretty good, if not the best at its weight, definitely above average. The armament of the mech is both a great strength and a bit of a weakness. 2 LRM-15s give the Crusader strong long-range firepower, and pairs of medium lasers, machine guns, and SRM-6s give the Crusader an equally strong close-range barrage. The weakness comes in the form of an overdependence on missile weapons to provide that firepower without a lot of ammunition to sustain. This does give the Crusader a bit of an endurance problem to contend with. 10 heat sinks are not much when compared to how much firepower the Crusader can dish out, and Alpha Strike is not a realistic prospect, but if using the weapons as intended with the LRMs used at range and the other weapons used when in close, heat buildup is more manageable, with the close-end weapons being the more concerning of the two groups. This last mech was a tough choice. I debated with myself quite a bit over which mech I would put in this final slot. I think it is a solid mech, one with flaws, but importantly very versatile and able to fit what I feel is a much needed role in a supporting fire mech, at least temporarily until it runs out of ammo, after which it can serve the role as a decent frontliner and brawl it out with the enemy. This multi-role ability is what brought this mech to the top when making this list, as I felt it fit an overall theme of giving more options to the player when selecting their lance loadout. As I said earlier in the video, this was meant as a fun presentation and discussion of mechs that I think would be a nice addition to the already existing lineup of mechs declared by the developers. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and feel free to leave your opinion on my choices and talk about mechs that you would also like included in the game. I know there are more that I could have included on this list that might just be seen in a future video, depending if people are interested in this kind of content. In any case, this is Melsgunner, signing out.